Hello, my name is Dr. Funda Goldman. I'm a licensed naturopathic physician with a private practice in Stratford, Connecticut. And today I wanted to talk to you about a homeopathic remedy for opening your heart to higher love. And this particular homeopathic is the Bach Flower remedy Holly. So let's get into it. Before we get too far along though, I just wanted to mention that the information presented here is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. For any symptoms that persist or worsen, please consult with a qualified medical professional. And homeopathy, if you're not familiar with it, can and should be used with other mental health modalities as appropriate. So the Bach Flower remedy Holly, we happen to be in the holiday season right now, so it's actually, I thought it was fitting and sort of cute to talk about this remedy now. So Bach Flower remedies in general, though, if you're not familiar with it, it's a kind of homeopathy. Homeopathy is a type of energy medicine. If you're interested in more background or history on homeopathy and or Bach Flower remedies, I provided that in a previous video about the Walnut Bach Flower remedies, so look for that if that's of interest. But the general concept with Bach Flower remedies is that disease originates from an internal struggle. And so I found that the Bach Flower remedies are particularly helpful and effective for different sorts of mental, emotional, and spiritual conditions. And when we're talking about Holly Bach Flower remedy specifically, the keynote symptoms are kind of qualities that you might find in somebody who may potentially benefit from this remedy. Somebody that's comes off as hard-hearted, they may be angry, they may be jealous, they may actually be, since we're in the holiday season, they may be sort of a Scrooge. They may be a Grinch. They may be somebody who's sort of, counter to a lot of the festivities and sort of the spirit of the holidays that comes about this time of year. So, and let's get into more depth here. So, again, I've mentioned before that homeopathy and the Bach flowers especially are really remedies of nuance. And so to find the best remedy for somebody, that's really what you want to seek out when you're, have somebody in front of you or you're going through a case. But people with Holly symptoms, they tend to feel isolated, separated, and rejected. Not just by people, but by life itself. So they may have experienced some sort of disappointment. They may they may live around or have grown up around people who feel that way, and so they sort of absorb those feelings or that perspective from other people. But that's kind of where a lot of the, that's the internal kind of feeling. And then it can often sort of externally manifest as feelings of hatred or jealousy or envy or resentment. Because what the contrast is that internally they feel isolated and separated and rejected. But externally they're seeing that other people are getting the goodies, right? The other people are getting the relationships, or other people are getting the, I don't know, the toys, right? The big house or the fancy car, or the trip to here, there, or whatever. And so the contrast between how they feel and what other people are experiencing, puts them at odds with things. And so because of this, they sort of put a damper. They can end up putting a damper on other people's good fortune and receiving of good things in life. So again, this can manifest as outwardly as what seems like hatred or jealousy or envy. But again, it's coming from this place of them specifically feeling cut off from the flow of good things. So they may feel disappointed, frustrated, or slighted. Again, because this is a pretty sensitive wound, whenever there's more evidence that will pile up to prove their point or prove their perspective, as in, you know, life is not good, life sucks, there's not enough to go around, you have to compete for the few good things that there are in life. I mean, when you have that sort of perspective, you know, it's really going to be sort of a dark cloud that's always hanging over them. And then, again, sometimes they're wanting to drag other people into that dark cloud. So they can also be very suspicious. Again, they don't really trust the good when it shows up. You know, they're always thinking like, you know, are there strings attached, or what's the deal here? They may complain quite a bit. They may actually withhold good things from other people as well, because again, they're stuck in this internal perspective of there's not a lot of good to go around, and so you've got to kind of hold on to or even hoard the good, or you need to sort of put other people in this position of making them work for good things, and you know, you want to be the string puller. You know, it's again, it all kind of wraps up onto itself. So again, it comes from this sense or perception that there is a lack of flow of good thing. There's a lack of grace or ease or connection with people. And this can also stem from feeling unloved. So again, this may be that maybe again, some relationship fell apart, or they didn't get the job promotion they wanted, or whatever. And so they may feel like, oh, you know, I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't get the goodies. And so, you know, that means that I'm not sort of deserving, or I wasn't loved enough to receive those things. But it can even go deeper into like not just sort of circumstantially or temporarily feeling like, you know, you haven't done enough or been enough to receive something that you perceive as good, but it can even become part of an identity where generally, you know, with all things, you feel unlovable. So that's sort of a deeper aspect of that. Um, it may be that Holly people really sort of excessively compare themselves to other people, because again, it's this contrast of internally they don't they feel isolated and separated from good things, people, and when they see other people happy and joyful and receiving things, um, you know, again, it just sort of adds to the fire, more brick, you know, more sort of wood to the fire that's sort of burning within them. And we find this, you know, and that's the thing too, is that even people who are on a spiritual path, you know, I've had to talk to quite a few people as a yoga instructor, you know, and I used to use the phrase, you know, just keep your eyes on your own mat. You know, I would have people who would say, oh, I'm not good at yoga. You know, I can't like touch my toes the way this person is, or whatever. Or, you know, they get sort of a negative ego about it. Or they can get into a positive ego about it. Like, oh, hey, I'm the jam. I'm really great because I can touch my toes better than everybody else in class. And that's really not the point of yoga. Plus, um, you know, you don't really know somebody's whole story, right? Maybe that person who easily touches their toes is a professional ballerina, right? So their whole context and ability level is completely different, right? The focus that they have in life to work with their body is completely different. And maybe if you're feeling great about yourself because you can touch your toes and other people can't, maybe that person who's really struggling and can just reach, you know, beyond their knees, maybe a year ago they were in a car accident and couldn't even walk. So the fact that they're in class at all is really a miracle, right? So that's sort of, you know, but that's what the mind does, right? It just sort of compares. And again, the mind, you know, the subconscious mind is sort of looking for evidence to prove that our current paradigm is correct, right? It's almost like paradigm itself. You know, if you read any of Eckhart Tolle's stuff, he's always about these sort of mind forms or mind concepts. It's almost like they're a living entity and they want to keep feeding themselves and they want to keep surviving, even if those paradigms aren't good for us anymore and they're blocking our good. Besides comparing themselves to others, they may also focus too much attention on that other people. Um, in terms of like they may be, if they find, for example, somebody in their life who is, a bit generous or kind or giving, loving, that sort of thing, and they haven't really experienced that much before, they may really attach themselves to somebody in perhaps not a healthy way, and even become potentially codependent because it's like they see this person as like the only source of good, which puts a lot of pressure on the other person. But as opposed to seeing that person as just one more sort of piece of evidence that actually life is good and there's a lot of good to be had, and that one person is just one particular example of that, one particular form of that, but they're not the only one. They're not the source really. They're just one sort of example of goodness in life. And so these people can also, because of this sort of hyper focus on one particular person who may seem like the only source of, you know, care or loving or that sort of thing in their life, they may become very insecure in relationships because they're always afraid that, they're going to lose that one source of goodness in their life. And so that can put a lot of pressure and tension in the relationship. So really the risk here for somebody who's experiencing this Holly state is that they misunderstand love to be a specific person or object outside of themselves instead of an internal state of being. And so if we look at that a little bit, if their perception is, well, goodness or love um, only shows up in the form of a red sports car or only shows up in the form of a significant relationship or something like that, really they're missing out on so much, right? Because if we take a step back and we even look at nature, right, the sun, shine rises every day and it just shines on everything, right? It shines on the plants, it shines on the animals, it shines on us, shines on the land, and it just gives, right? And we receive so much from that. I mean, instead of focusing on one particular object or one particular person, if we really take that in, right? If we really allow ourselves, if we allow our hearts to open and connect with that flow, of nature, um, right? If we take that in, wow, the sun is shining and offering me all this goodness. Wow, that flower and all of its beautiful color, it's like offering me beauty. And wow, that bird in the tree, I hear its song and it's inspiring me and giving me joy. And if we start there, or even like, look down at your feet, oh, I'm wearing a pair of socks that's keeping my feet warm, that comfort, you know, um, if we start really kind of tuning into that level of the sort of universal life flow, we tune into that first, and then our cup starts to fill, right? When we start noticing, all these small but infinite things that come our way, instead of, hyper focusing on, one or two sort of big ticket items, so to speak, um, we start to realize that that flow is not just to us, but is part of us and can flow through us. So as our cup gets filled, as we notice how much we receive from life, from nature, from the big universal flow, our cup fills up, and then we can share that, and it's sort of a natural extension to want to share that with others so that we participate in the flow. And then, that flow fills up our cup, and then we share from the overflow, and we share that with others in whatever way. Maybe it's offering a neighbor a smile, or helping a friend move, or buying a stranger a cup of coffee. It can show up in so many ways, big or small. And then it comes back. It keeps coming back. and it just fills up other people's cup. And so, it's like the cups keep filling each other up. And the cycle builds on itself as opposed to gets cut off because somebody doesn't feel like there's enough to go around. Right? So, taking a remedy like this can help someone shift into that sort of higher level perspective or higher level um, flow and help them participate in it and become part of that universal circuit. So with this remedy, it can help people tap into that, and then they'll feel connected to nature, and then to themselves, and then to others. And then they'll generally feel more peaceful because they don't have to spend so much time sort of fighting against this or fighting against their mind. They become sort of just naturally more generous and they just radiate love because, again, their cup is full. And it's not just that, but they are the cup and they are the love that fills up the cup itself. And it just sort of pours out of them naturally. Um, and that's the thing is, you can think of all this, and you can kind of see this all too, right? With the holidays, a lot of gift giving and parties and cards and that sort of thing. And it's sort of um, this time of year, it's easy to see how that cycle um, can be beneficial to everybody. But this sort of remedy too can be helpful when somebody has experienced a pretty big disappointment and um, they doubt the goodness of life. They doubt the love and goodness and ease and grace is out there. I remember when I was living in Chicago, there happened to be a Vedanta society down the street from my house, which is quite something because there are only a few centers. It's an Eastern Philosophical Center. There are only a few centers like that in the United States, and it just happened to be down the street from my house. I walked past it a bunch of times, and I didn't even know quite what it was, but I ended up walking in there one day just out of curiosity mostly. And they were, there was a Swami there, and he was giving lectures and stuff. And so I attended a few of these, and over and over again through these lectures, he would say, God is everywhere, love is everywhere. And I'm listening, I'm taking this in. And then I'd go home and, on the news, there would be some story, some horrific story of, like, I remember one specifically, a kid, the police raided this house and there was a kid, they found the kid chained to a bed, just horrible, just turned my stomach. And so, here I'm listening, I'm going to a few of these lectures and Swami's talking about God is everywhere, love is everywhere. So after one of the lectures, I go to the Swami and say, well, Swami, I hear what you're saying, but, then I go and listen to the news and they found this kid chained to a bed. And I said, where's God in that? Where's love in that? And he told me two things. One, he said, well, first of all, this world, if you allow yourself to perceive it, is a moral gymnasium. And so these sorts of situations, right? They're sort of like loving 101, right? The people who are easy to love and who love you back, right? That's sort of loving 101. But then there's sort of like, again, the more challenging varieties of that. There's some people in some situations that are more difficult to love. And so by participating in this and using these concepts, right, it's sort of like building our loving muscles. It's building our compassion muscles. It's building can we maintain our equilibrium and maintain an open heart muscles. And then the second thing he said is that, you don't know the whole big story of this child's life, right? I mean, it may seem at this point, really horrible and dire, but maybe because of the situation, this child will end up becoming one of the greatest child advocates that we will ever know. You can't see into the future. You can't know exactly what this child's trajectory or journey is, right? So I took that in. I really did. And, I can't say it's always easy to do, But I think trying to incorporate that sort of ideal is really not just helpful, but really essential for living in the world. And so again, the holly remedy may be helpful, not just for, again, for somebody who's sort of grown up, with the sort of lack mentality, or have had a few disappointments, or maybe just recently maybe they were very much in the flow before and had some personal tragedy that really just sort of, uprooted, or sort of temporarily uprooted this sort of way of being that they had. And so they're doubting, right? They're just in this space of doubting. And so the holly remedy can help them find their way back to the flow. So there you go, the holly Bach flower remedy. Thank you for your time, and thank you for learning about the Bach flowers and the homeopathy. Again, I found them amazingly useful in my practice, and I hope that it's helpful to you. So until next time, take care.